Hey yo, and we're back. This is your boy Fully Still Podcast, and I'm here with my girlfriend for the first time. And you're trying to. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. But I'm here with the amazing Sarah. But Sarah, before you introduce yourself, would you describe your last dreams without telling us who you are? If you know what I mean.
The last dream.
The last dream. The last amazing
gosh.
dream. Like, describe it without telling people who you are.
Well, it was actually kind of more of a daydream. It was actually when I was working on one of my patients in the massage room.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're in the massage room, we like to have soft music playing. Most massage therapists do.
Uh-huh.
And I was playing an album that had ocean waves on it. So, along with music, with soft music. And the ocean waves were more in the background, so I kind of started dreaming about a beautiful sunset on the beach and just imagining what that would look like in my mind. Because even though we may not be able to see what a sunrise or a sunset looks like, we can imagine what it looks like just by hearing people describe the colors and by all that kind of stuff. So when people describe particular colors like the blue, the reds, the orange, the pinkish colors, just every hue of the rainbow when the sun hits the water, it just makes me think of, wow, I wonder how I could make a mental image of that.
What? Like, you're literally like, the way you were describing it was like,
Yeah.
It was almost as if you had already have the mental image of it.
Yeah.
So if somebody said the color red, what do you imagine? Or what do you think
If
of?
someone says the color red, I usually imagine red Christmas balls on a tree. On a Christmas tree. I usually imagine or like a red jello, red balloons, a lot of different things. Like even sometimes if the sky turns red and somebody tells me, I sometimes think of the different colors that the sky could possibly turn depending on the way the sun is hitting it or the angle of the sun rays or whatever it is that is causing it to become that color.
Oh, wow.
So I even sometimes imagine a blood moon when I hear the word red, because people have described what a blood moon looks like. So I'm just like, oh wow, that's interesting.
I don't think it's as red as people make it sound like. It's more like dark red.
Yeah.
Like, okay. If 5 of your friends were in the room and one of them farts, would you be able to tell who it was?
Depending on where they were sitting, probably. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. No way. Depending on where the person was sitting, I would probably be able to tell who it was, and I'd look at them and go like, excuse yourself.
No, I mean, like, don't you have, like, I don't know. I would assume, like, from my assumption as a 5-year-old, maybe I'm 6 now. Your sense of smell is so good and distinguished, like you could be able to feel like, this sounds like Johnny's smell.
Yeah.
This is Deborah. This can't be Deborah. Deborah did this. That's how I imagine it.
Yeah, because like I said, depending on who it was and where they were sitting and everything like that, and if I heard a reaction come out of them, I would know exactly who it was, and I'd just be like, oh my god, okay, get out of here before you stink of cheese. That's a very interesting question.
I told you, we are here for a ride. Now, if you were to give yourself 2 minutes to introduce yourself the way you would like to be introduced.
Well, my name is Sarah Strandford. I am a massage therapist. I work at Wilcox Family Chiropractic, and I have been working there for almost a year. It will be a year on November 8th. I like to sing. I like to play the piano. My favorite animal is the dolphin. And I am also blind. The reason I put my blindness last is because my personal feeling about it is no one out there should be defined by their disability. And unfortunately for me, I have been defined by my disability almost my entire life. But now that I'm working and now that I'm meeting people within the Grand Rapids community, I'm starting to realize that speaking of your blindness is not only important, but also something to allow a person to see what it's like a little bit, to kind of get a feeling for what it's like when you discuss how it is to be someone like me. And a lot of my patients have had super good questions, and I've been able to hopefully answer them to the best of my ability. But I always I've started to realize that it's important to discuss it, because every discussion you can have with someone who doesn't know what it's like to be blind, it becomes a teachable moment.
That is true. So. Excuse me. Can you tell what I'm doing?
You're drinking.
I told you a sense of hearing is unreal. I wasn't lying. I was just testing. I was just testing it just to see if it's true or not. What motivates... Oh, actually, no. Before we go there, who's the most inspiring person in your life? And why that person?
I wished I'd brought a picture of that person with me, because I have a couple of photos of her back at my condo, and I didn't even think to do that. The most inspirational person would have to be my maternal grandmother. And the reason I say that is because...
Sorry. Can you explain maternal for...
Can I what?
Can you explain what maternal means?
Maternal? Oh, sorry. My grandmother on my mother's side.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Maternal is a big word for some of us. As you can tell.
Yeah, it's okay. But no, it's my grandmother on my mom's side, my maternal grandmother. And the reason why she was such an inspiration is because she was a very strong woman, a very firm believer in having any kind of Christian faith, no matter what it was. She was a very firm believer in God. And the sad part of this story is we lost her in 2008 due to cancer. But her faith remained so strong throughout the 3 to 3.5 years that she was fighting that cancer. And because of that, I wanted to have just as strong of a faith as she did. And even though her death caused me to become very angry at God and very upset by the loss of her, I kind of turned away from him for a while, but eventually found my way back thanks to some close friends giving me some guidance that I needed, and also finding a church that I felt I could truly belong to. So because of all of that, I've come back to my faith and have tried my hardest to be strong with my faith and to stay true to my faith. And it's all because of my grandmother's teachings.
Wow.
So she is the most inspirational, because she could have cared less if I was blind or not. She made sure that I could be as independent as possible. And my mother was right there alongside her with that one. My mother is just as inspirational because, she was there 24/7. And she was one of those people who literally said, I'm not going to allow my children, because my brother is also blind, but she was not going to allow us to just live on SSI and stay at home.
Were you both born blind?
Yep, we both were. My parents are sighted.
What does that mean?
What's that?
Sighted. What does sighted mean?
It means that they can see. It means my parents both
both
have vision.
I should have known that. Wow. All right.
Sorry, guys.
I was so in the story that I didn't even know the word that I should know. But also one thing too, I forgot to say. Mother, you're amazing, but you came second after grandmother. That's all I have to say. That's all.
Well, I think she already kind of knows that.
Oh, there you go.
Because she knew that my grandmother and I were very, very close. In fact, one year during Christmas, we were talking, and I was looking at a beautiful nativity scene that my grandmother painted. And my mom told me, I'm going to make sure to put it down in my will that you are going to get that nativity scene after I pass away. And I almost cried because that nativity scene has always been one of my favorite Christmas pieces to look at because it reminds me so much of her.
And by when you say look at, you more
touch.
Feel?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
When words don't matter here because looking to me is the same thing whether you're using your hands or your eyes. Just because you have to use different tools in order to see things differently, it's the same concept because you're feeling. I mean, for me, my fingers are my eyes. My taste buds are my eyes. My nose is my eyes. My ears are my eyes. All my other senses have had to compensate for the one that I lost. So when I talk about looking at something, it's the same thing to me, even though I'm just using my fingers in order to figure out what I'm touching.
Yeah. Oh man, like, you know, it's because like I'm just trying to come to a little understanding with my little mind, because like color involved. Is there some source of a feel? Does color give you a sense of feeling or no? I know
it depends on what it. No, it's not because it depends on what it is that I'm touching. Like, for example, every single time I touch a rose, I either think the colors red, yellow, pink, or white, and in some occasions blue, because at my grandmother's funeral we had blue roses because blue was her favorite color. And blue is also my favorite color.
Oh, nice.
So, and I'm so glad I get to wear that color every day because of my eyes.
Oh wow, that is true. That is very true. You have beautiful eyes.
Thank you.
Hey, no flirting. Sorry.
That was a compliment.
Okay.
Flirting, that was a compliment.
Alright, so with that being said, what is the nicest compliment you ever received? And why that compliment?
Oh gosh. I've received many compliments during my life, but probably the nicest one I've ever received is usually when most of my patients walk out telling me that they feel so much better than what they did when they walked in. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. It doesn't matter how it's said. What matters is the sincerity behind what people are saying. But the kindest compliments are always the ones, in my opinion, that people not just speak, but they actually write down. I received a card from someone just recently that almost caused me to cry tears of joy because I was not expecting his words. But he is the worship leader at LaGrave Christian Reformed Church. And I have worked with him a fair few times over the years, even though LaGrave is not my home church. And he absolutely loves it whenever I can take time out of my schedule and away from my own church services to sing or play the piano or both. And he always would give me cards afterwards. And the one he gave me this time really was meant a lot to me because it showed in his words how much he appreciated the fact that I can use music in order to lead people to a deeper faith. Music and faith, to me, go hand in hand. They really do. Because every single time I sing a song or play a hymn on the piano, the one person I'm doing it for is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And for me to be able to do that and to honor him with the gifts that he's given me to use, that means more to me than anything else ever could. So when you talk about compliments, the person I look for approval the most from is God himself. Even though other people speak to me, I know some of them are probably praying about it before they say what they feel is right to say. And I have a funny feeling that this person that I'm speaking of, the worship leader at LaGrave, I know that he's very much allowing his belief in God and his faith to come through in the words that he speaks to me.
Oh.
So, but I always, no matter how many compliments I receive, I always do my best to look for God's approval, because that's the approval that's going to matter most in the end.
And how do you know which compliment? I mean, how do you know you have God's approval? How does one person knows?
I don't always know if I have his approval. Because God speaks in mysterious ways. He really does. He really speaks to us in mysterious ways. But how I know is when I say to myself at the end of the day, thank you, Lord, for allowing me to be able to use my gift of giving massages to help others. So whenever I say thank you, which I try so hard to do, some days I forget because I'm so tired, and other days it just totally slips my mind. But every single time I say a quick prayer before a massage starts, or every single time I think about him throughout my day, I know he's there. I know he's watching me, and I know he smiles every single time I say thank you. No matter, even if I can't see it or feel it, something tells me that that he knows I'm doing my best to do everything I can to please him.
Okay, so let's say, for example, if we remove the concept, like the Bible teaching of Jesus, the person of Jesus, how can you describe God to a 6-year-old kid?
Oof. Oh man. That's kind of a hard one, because again, even though his love is simple and all of his teachings can be simplified, he's still a very hard person to describe, because can you imagine one person loving each and every single person, 7 billion people? Could you imagine someone being able to love that many people? Could you imagine that? No, you can't. And that's why the chorus to one of my favorite contemporary pieces, Indescribable, Uncontainable. You put the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. All powerful. Just those words. If a 6-year-old were to listen to that song, even though the words are kind of a little bit larger than what a 6-year-old would probably know. But if a 6-year-old would be able to sit down and listen to that song, he or she would be able to understand and say, so God loves every single one of us and knows every single one of us, even though some may not know him.
Have you ever had a mystical experience?
There's one that I can recollect, yes.
Would you mind sharing it?
No. It's kind of difficult to talk about, because it was back in a time where I was dealing with a priest that was less than kind to me in a lot of different ways. And even though he claimed that I would always be welcomed, he never was welcoming to me if he claimed I didn't listen to him when it came to transportation and whatnot. Well, one day that happened. I came to the church way early, even though I tried to tell them it doesn't open until this particular time. I have been asked to get here at this particular time, so I really need you to help me out with this. And unfortunately, that plea kind of fell on deaf ears. So it wasn't my fault. It wasn't their fault. It's just how it went down. Well, this priest, really came down on me and just spoke to me in an awful way. And I was like, I can't I just can't do this anymore. And during that time, I was also singing with a few other people. And I still went up and did it, but I was not emotionally into it because I felt like he didn't deserve to have me up there if he was going to treat me like that. So after doing a few other things throughout the day, I called a good friend of mine. It was way late at night, but I said, I just really need to talk to you. I'm upset. I can't do this anymore. I need your help. So I kept him up until after midnight, just crying and crying and crying. I could not stop. No matter what I tried to do, I couldn't stop. Because I just felt very, very alone. Especially spiritually alone. I was like, for somebody that I go and see for confessions and everything, I can't believe he's being like this. So when I went to bed that night, I decided to turn on some hymns that we sing in the church that I go to and fell asleep listening to them. And the next morning I woke up and it felt like someone was just lying there beside me, holding me. And it was when I was between sleeping and waking. Like I was at the halfway point of waking up when I felt this. And when I completely woke up, I still kind of had that sensation, and I'm like, that was God. That had to have been God. Like, there's no other way around it. I just woke up feeling as though someone were just lying there next to me, holding me, and just hugging me, comforting me. And, you know, even though there were no words said or anything like that, I just somehow knew that it was God. And to this day, I still remember that because of the warmth that I felt, and also the fact that I felt comforted, I felt well, I was ready to get up and face the day no matter what was thrown at me.
When was the first time you realized you were blind? And what made you realize that?
I think I always knew. Even when I was about like 1 or 2 years old, I think I always knew that there was something different about me. But for me, I just thought it was normal that I had to use my hands for everything, that I had to use my ears for everything, that I had to use my nose and mouth for everything. I just thought it was completely normal. I didn't really notice any difference. But over time, I realized, because I was kind of raised around a group of other blind people, so I thought that I thought that everybody was kind of like that, but I realized over time that, no, I'm different. I'm not like everyone else. My vision's not very good. I have to use this in order to get around everywhere. And I had to use a giant clunky machine that literally looks like a typewriter. It's called a brailler. But it looks like a typewriter. It's very similar to a typewriter. The only difference is it types out in braille instead of print. That's the only difference. But it
cool
made
stuff.
What's that?
Cool stuff.
What do you mean?
So you bring about your cool stuff.
Yeah.
Typewriter. Sorry, continue.
It's okay. But the thing made a ton of noise, and I felt like it was, especially when I was integrated into a class of sighted people, I was definitely the odd man out, because here I was using this machine that made a ton of noise. And
everybody else was quiet.
Yeah, and everybody else is quiet, focusing, and I'm like, man, I feel like I'm being a huge distraction there. But thank God that all started to change when technology for the blind started kind of revealing itself a little bit. Because we were able to use machines that talked to us instead of reading Braille all the time, which to me, though, Braille is still super important, because blind people who know Braille, they're actually more likely to get a job than blind people who don't. Because sometimes, I mean, I don't have to do this in my office, But sometimes people still need to use Braille in order to take quick little notes or remind themselves of something. Thankfully, I don't need to do that. Although there have been times where I'm just like, I wonder if I should just bring in a slate and stylus, which is another form of writing Braille, but for one, it's a lot quieter, and for two, it's almost like you're using a pen and paper. I wish I could have brought some of this stuff in to show you, but I didn't even think about it. But either way, a slate and stylus, what that basically is it's a long metal flat, it's kind of flat like this, and it what you do is it opens up at a right angle like this, and you put the paper into it, and you
is it regular paper? Or?
Yeah, no, it's thicker paper. It's thicker like cardstock. You got to use something similar to cardstock, otherwise the paper's too thin to
It's gonna break through.
Yeah, it's gonna break through, and it's not gonna be legible at all, because Braille is, you have to feel it. If you can't feel it, you're not gonna be able to know what it says. But there have been times where I've almost thought about doing that just to remind myself of.
Can I ask you something? Can you be bad at spelling in Braille?
Yeah. No, actually, that's actually a really good question, because the answer is yes.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Like, if I'm sitting down and I'm typing something and I don't know how to spell something, I have to ask stupid Siri how to spell it. And I'm like, God, that's embarrassing. I use this word almost every single flippin' day, and I don't know how to spell it when I'm typing it out, but I can spell it just fine when I'm writing Braille. What the heck is wrong with this picture?
What?
I'm dead serious. I'm being dead serious when I say that. Because every single time I work on typing something down in Braille, I'm just like, oh, yeah, this brings me back to 3rd, 4th, 5th grade spelling, where it was just, how do you spell this? How do you spell that? How do you spell the other thing? So, so it's interesting, because the fact that, you're doing 2 different forms of typing. You're either using a computer that talks to you to do your typing, or you're writing in Braille. And because with me being so used to using Braille as kind of the first, as kind of my first way of writing and reading and everything else, that's just, it's just one of those things where you look at it and you're just like, what's that?
Do you have a second way?
The second way is typing on a computer and typing everything out. Reading, I use audiobooks.
Okay.
If I use audio,
same.
Yeah.
I can't read either.
Yeah. So I use audiobooks. But there are times when I'd prefer Braille books, because the fact that reading Braille helps me stay more focused. So it's just interesting, because sometimes, when you're listening to something, because it's funny. I'm blind, but I'm actually a very visual learner. I need to feel what's in front of me in order to figure out what I'm doing and what I'm looking at. So, I'll give you an example. Mathematics was always very, very hard for me. And there would be times where I would not have the book in Braille on time, so I would have to try reading it using my computer. And the graphics that I'd have to use sometimes just didn't make any sense when I was using my computer, and I'm just like, I need to really see this in front of me in order to understand it.
I need to see this in front of me.
Yeah, I have to feel it. Like, for example, I'm reaching out around me just trying to figure out what's where, and I'm feeling a computer keyboard right there. I'm feeling this table. I'm feeling chords here. So it's like, oh, I kind of know what's in front of me. It's all equipment to do this podcast. So it's just interesting with the fact that instead of visually seeing your surroundings like most people do, I have to feel my surroundings in order to figure out what's where and what I have in front of me. So that way I either, number 1, don't run into it, or number 2, don't damage something that's breakable.
Talking about feel. If I placed all your 3 X's here, and you had to feel their face, could you be able to, without smelling them, could you be able to tell who's who?
Yeah, I'd be able to tell who was. I would even be able to tell who was who just by touching their hands.
You would be?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm dead serious. I'm usually able to tell who is who by the sound of their voice, the touch of their hands. And normally I don't do the feeling faces thing. I really don't, because for me that's getting into somebody's personal bubble, and I just don't like doing that because I know what it feels like to have people get into my personal bubble, and I'm just like, back up just a tiny bit. I think you're getting too close. So for me, I definitely don't do the feeling faces, but I would definitely be able to tell who was who just by either the sound of their voice or feeling their hands.
Oh wow. I'm not flirting. I've been staring at you for most of this podcast while you speak. And I realize you blink a lot.
I do.
But
it's called nystagmus. It's stigmatism. What it means is the muscles in the back of my eyes, because I haven't had to use them very much, they're very weak for starters. So when those muscles are weak and you're not using them, your eyes involuntarily move.
Because I was like, what's the point of blinking if you can't see?
Yeah.
I also, is it sensitive in there if, let's say, like a dust when in the, does it bothers you? Or there's no sensitivity?
I do see some things. I can see light, dark, shapes, colors, and shadows, but very...
What light can you see right now?
I can see the camera light on over there. I'm pointing right at it. I can see the camera light here. So again, you know, because those bright lights that are just right there, those spotlights and everything, I see those. I can see the microphone in front of me.
You can?
Yeah, it's this big black thing right here.
I was going to ask you. Okay, I was going to ask you a very good question about that. Sorry. I think it's my turn again, right? Or is it just...
No, you ask
so
what you want.
when you were little, what was your dream? What did you want to become? And what happened?
God, when I was little, like I said, I had a huge interest in dolphins. So, dolphins, yes. I like dolphins. Because, and here's the reason why, there's kind of a backstory behind it. But the reason I'm interested in them so much is because of the fact that they use what's called echolocation. And echolocation is where they make it, yep, exactly. Exactly.
Can you do that? No. And then, can you hear sound bounce off a wall?
Yes.
God damn, I'm kind of jealous. I am really jealous about that. I am, oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, no. But no, I could hear that little click that I just made bounce off the walls. So I know I'm in a small room. I don't know the dimensions of it or anything like that, but I know I'm in a small room. And yeah, see, I heard that. So, you know, with dolphins, it's the same concept, because 80% of the time they're swimming underwater. And what happens when you're underwater? You lose what? You lose your sight. So how do dolphins manage to figure out where they are, what's around them, what's, you know, what they're looking at? They use echolocation. So they can actually visualize what they're looking at by using clicks and whistles that bounce off of whatever object they're exploring. And there's tissue in their jawline that actually sends the signal up to their brain, and they can make a mental image of what
do some people have that, like where they could, like, for example, like they can see that to where the mic, and then they can almost visualize the mic?
Yeah, well, not something that small, but you know, I mean, you can tell it's there and everything like that, but it's mostly larger things that, like walls of buildings. We can hear the sounds bouncing off of those. We can always tell when we're in open spaces, because the fact that there's nothing either to our right or to our left, it's all open, and there's just wide spaces in front of us, behind us, either to the left or to the right. So we can always tell that, because this, in effect, when you use it, especially on hardwood floors or harder surfaces or whatever, every single time we tap it one way or the other in order to feel what's in front of us, we can also hear the sound of our cane tapping if it's bouncing off of something or not. So there are a lot of ways that we use echolocation in order to figure out where we are.
You see, so when you use the stick, I never the cane. Not the
Yeah,
stick.
it's okay.
I'm learning better words. I never thought you guys used sound. I thought it was all based on a feel.
Oh no, like I said, our ears, just like our hands, are our eyes as well. Especially if we're walking outside, because I actually was able to walk to my parents' house with where I was living before where I'm at now, because I was living right on 44th Street, and my parents lived. It was about a 5-minute drive, 30-minute walk. So I was actually able to walk to my parents' house from where I lived. And I did that quite often because I enjoyed being outside. I enjoyed the sunshine. But the thing I didn't enjoy was people driving like idiots.
Oh, that's normal.
because I had to use the crossing at Burlingame and 44th, and that crossing scared the crap out of me every time.
It is
very
scary.
scary.
It's very busy corner.
Yeah. So the thing that I'm thankful about there is they put in a talking crosswalk. They put in talking
the new stuff.
Yeah. So thankfully that was there. I mean, I would have been able to tell when it was my time to go if I were to listen to traffic, which I always do. I always listen to when traffic is stopping and going because that's just as important. And that's how I learned. It's called orientation and mobility. And I took that all the way from probably the time I was about 4 or 5 years old all the way up to my senior year in high school. And what they teach you is they teach you how to cross streets. They teach you how to handle busy intersections. They teach you what a 4-way stop is. They teach you what a stoplight is and when it's time for you to go. They do all that kind of stuff with you. So it was fun. It was interesting. And thankfully, because of all those lessons, that's why I'm able to figure out where I'm at, what I'm doing, everything else. So it's just, you learn. And every situation, you have to adapt to it. It doesn't matter. Even if you're taking the same route, you have to adapt because the fact that every time you take it, there's going to be something different happening.
Could be a little stone on the way.
A little stone on the way, or there could be someone doing this on their phone.
A kid left their bike.
Yeah, exactly. Or there could be somebody doing this on their phone while driving.
They're not seeing anything.
Yeah, except for the big white screen that's in front of their face.
Do you think BP will be a cool name instead of saying blind people?
No. No.
That's a no, guys. You heard it. That's a no. That's a no.
No.
You are in a room. 5 of your friends, of your closest friends, or your closest people.
Yeah.
Are set around you, but apart from each other, and they all walk single-handedly towards you. Could you be able to tell who's who just from their walk? Sometimes I can, depending on who it is and depending on, depending on where I'm at and everything. Sometimes I can tell who it is just by the footstep that they have. But there are some times where you're gonna find this crazy, but I can't there are times where I can't hear footsteps at all because the person just knows how to walk stealthily. And the other chiropractor that I work with, extremely stealthy guy. You'd think that somebody who's about 6'2", 6'3", you would think he'd be walking around like Frankenstein, right? Well, no. Softest walk ever. Don't even know he's there. And that's seriously what happens with me is I'll be focused on typing up notes on a particular patient, and this is how he gets me. I'll be working on those notes. I'll be so focused on what I'm doing. I won't even hear him walking in. I won't even hear him walking up to the desk until all of a sudden he's standing right there. You all set? Help me, God, if I do not jump out of my skin. Dead seriously. And the third time he did this, I looked back at him and I said, you scared the stuff out of me. And both of us were laughing. And he comes and he calls back to me. He's like, yeah, I'm sneaky. I know. You would assume you'd get him. You would assume you'd be the person to be like.
Well, because a plan that I have for Halloween. Good thing that you mentioned this. I plan on bringing chocolate eyeballs into the office. Yes, they make chocolate eyeballs. So what they do is it's little balls of chocolate that are filled with either hot fudge, caramel, or peanut butter. And so it's a chocolate ball with that filling, and they take a piece of foil and they actually put the eyeball on the foil itself. So the first thing you're going to see is the eyeball until you open it, and then you find that delectable piece of chocolate waiting inside.
That should be fun. That should be fun.
But the joke that I'm going to make, though, surgically removed in a sterile environment might be tasty.
That should be fun.
That's where my maniacalness comes in.
I forgot. Wait, did you say about the dream when you were a kid?
Yes.
I know you said you had fascinating thing with dolphins.
Yeah.
But I forgot to say.
I talked about that earlier when I was in the massage room, and I had that little daydream about me being by the ocean and the sunset and everything. Yeah. But there have been times where I was a teenager and a little bit younger than that I would actually have dreams of being around dolphins and touching them and swimming with them and whatnot.
Oh, by dream. Okay, all right, let me take that back. By dream, it's meant like what did you want to become?
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
We went off on a huge tangent.
I forgot she's blind over here. I forgot she's blind and I just say dream. No, I'm just kidding.
Smart Alec. I think we're gonna need a new host here, guys.
A little bit of more training and I'll be better. I'll be better. I promise. Be patient, guys. Be patient.
But the dream that I had when I was a little kid, I actually dreamed about being a dolphin trainer at SeaWorld. Oh. That was one of the biggest things that I wanted to do, but I actually did some research into it and realized that it wasn't all cracked up to be what most people think, because, and not to get political here, but I've seen some behind the scenes stuff with SeaWorld and do not agree with it at all. They've changed their attitudes a little bit, but to me, not enough, because in all honesty, I feel like they don't respect the animals that are in their care. Yeah. And that's just my personal feeling about it.
That has been an issue for a minute, actually.
It has been. Ever since 2010, when that trainer was killed. That's what really turned me off from that dream. And it was something I held on to for so long until I learned about that trainer who died. And I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't pursue that. I'm so glad I didn't pursue it. But, you know, there were other aspirations that I had, like being a professional pianist. I've thought about that, but my mother quashed that because all she was seeing was dollar signs. Is my daughter going to make enough to get off of SSI? Is she going to make enough to be able to get her own home? But that was all she was seeing was dollar signs. And most of my family members, they were just like, well, we want you to make good money. We don't care about what you like for a job. We want you to make money.
Sounds like most families right there.
Yeah, that is most families. Most parents want their kids to go out and just be money makers and be well off and everything else.
Or be the dream they never lived.
Yeah. So for me, my mom was just like, well, there's no money in that. There's no money in music unless you teach it. That's the only way you're going to get money out of it.
Oh, you sing it too?
Well, I'm sorry, but I kind of would disagree with that. But, you know, that's just me.
Yeah, that is true.
But what brought me to becoming a massage therapist, now that we're talking about dreams, is I had a vocational thought of becoming a massage therapist back in my junior year of high school. Well, when I graduated college, back in 2015.
And what did you study?
BS on top of BS on top of BS.
Sounds like most of us. And now you're a podcast host.
Well, it was a bachelor's in general studies with emphasis in business and psychology is what it was. Because I tried my hand at HR management, and that did not work very well because I wasn't really enthusiastic about it. but I knew I wanted to do something to where I was working with people. So I decided to try my hand and go like, well, instead of the business aspect of it, let's try the brain aspect of it and work on psychology.
How did that go?
Failed out of that too, because the fact that I'm way too art oriented. I'm very... I can't remember if it's left brain or right brain. I
one of them.
Yeah, but I'm very just more arts oriented, music oriented, all that kind of stuff. So the science stuff, I just don't get it. I don't get mathematics. I don't get science. It just doesn't make any sense. No matter how much I have interest in it, it's just
nothing.
Now, yeah. so failed out of that. So my very last semester, I actually took 4 classes that I fell in love with almost instantly. I took a baccalaureate level writing course, which every student needs to take that. But the other 3 were basically all electives. I took a music appreciation course, a jazz history course, and I took an anthropology course. And all 3 of those classes just, oh my gosh, I was so fascinated I couldn't put the stuff I was reading down. Because with my anthropology course, we were studying a tribe of people called the Hmong. And the Hmong are just very interesting. They're very family oriented. They're very caring about each other. Community is a huge thing to them. So I read a book that semester that was mandatory to read. It's called The Spirit Catches You When You Fall. And
sounds like a good book.
Oh gosh, it was so interesting. And the reason it was titled that is because the fact that it was a Hmong family. It was about a Hmong family whose youngest daughter, Leah, when she was about 6 months old, she had a really bad seizure. And her parents blamed one of her siblings slamming a door on having the seizure. And they thought that's what it was. But when they went to the doctors, they couldn't understand English.
Oh.
Because they just moved to America, so they really couldn't understand English all that well. And the doctor explained, no, she has epilepsy. Which is a very serious condition. Some people have it so bad to where they're having episodes quite often.
Yeah, where it's almost like repeats.
Yeah. But, you know, that didn't stop them from caring about her. That didn't stop them from loving her. So the way they described it was, well, the spirit is going to catch her when she falls and pick her back up again. So that's how they described these seizures. Wow. So in the end, you know, I could not put this book down. It was so interesting. The different cultures and the celebrations that they did and whatnot was just amazing to me.
Sorry.
So, but my other 2 classes were just as interesting because even though I already knew this stuff from taking music appreciation courses before, it still never stopped fascinating me. All the different, because we didn't just learn about types of music out there in this day and age. We went all the way back to music from the 1400s, the 1500s. We studied Baroque, we studied classical, we studied Renaissance. And it never stopped. It was always interesting listening to instruments that were from those ages because, like, for example, the English horn, that's no longer used. The older version of a trumpet, instead of having valves like the current trumpets do, the older version of a trumpet just had little holes that you had to put your fingers over to make the note. Similar to a recorder, excuse me. Like kind of the same concept to a recorder, except it still sounded like a trumpet. And I mean, because we went across cultures, we learned about instruments from China, like the sitar from India. We learned about that. We learned about instruments used in Africa. So we learned about all these different places. And different instruments, as well as the kind of music that they'd play there. And it was just fascinating to me. And I was like, wow. So, you know, because usually it was just American music. That was, you know, that's always what I'm familiar with is American and European. I'm not familiar with a lot of Middle Eastern music or Far East music or music down in Africa. I'm not familiar with that. So it was always interesting to learn that type of stuff. And it, you know, I found it enjoyable. I found it fun. And to this day, I kind of look back at that and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Talking about different cultures and different areas, can you be able to tell through people when they're speaking, like, oh, they sound Middle Eastern, they sound Asian,
sometimes, but not very often. I have a little bit of a hard time telling that sometimes because, it just depends. Like, there was one professor that I had back in college. He was one of my Spanish professors. And I thought that he was from Mexico or something like that. He wanted us to guess where he was from because he always opens up his first class with, I come from another planet. So that's how he says it, is I come from another planet. And then he'll say, what country do you think I'm from? Well, people were like, Mexico, Spain, Honduras, places like, and he's like, no. And finally, he's like, okay, do you guys give up yet? And we're all just like, yeah, I'm not even going to guess. And he goes, I'm from Greece. And I'm sitting there and I'm going like, oh my God, a Greek guy teaching us Spanish. How the hell is this going to work out? Okay. But he was very intelligent. Knew a lot, like he knew his stuff. He was very, very good at teaching it to us. Excuse me. And just amazing. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, who would have ever thought that a Greek guy would be teaching us Spanish? Like, it was just so interesting. Because the semester after that, I actually had a professor from El Salvador. She moved to America when she was quite young, but she kept her accent. And because the fact that I'm used to hearing accents from Spain and Mexico and stuff like that, I'm like, she's got to be from Latin America. She's got to be. It's just, where is she from? And when she told us that she was from El Salvador, it was just like, wow. So, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And these two professors, both of them are still good friends of mine to this day. We don't see each other as often as we'd like. But I've kept in contact with both of them. So.
Do you think blind folks have... Sorry, is that even a better word to use?
Blind folks is fine.
Blind folks. See, I'm getting better. BP wasn't allowed. Blind folks is thumbs up. So I'm getting better. See, I told you. You don't need a new host. I'm still here.
So what was your question?
I got so excited I even forgot my question.
Jeez! Well, you started off by saying, do you think blind folks? And then you stopped.
It was a good question too. Wow.
Uh-oh.
You distracted me.
He lost his marbles.
I got too excited with blind folks when I got an approval. Because I tried, it was risky. It was pretty risky. I'll come back to that question. But you said you had an interaction with a 6-year-old. And he or she was asking you interesting questions.
He was asking me interesting questions, yeah.
What was the most interesting question they asked you?
Gosh, if I can remember back that far, because the fact that the past several months have been just a major whirlwind of activity. But, I think probably the most interesting question was, and this is a question that has been asked by several people. How did you become blind? I always find that an interesting question because there are so many ways, so many factors that come into play, because not every blind person is the same, just like not every deaf person is the same, or whatever have you. We're all different. And it depends on what caused our blindness. And because there are some people that I know who have become blind as adults. There are others that I know who are like me and have been blind since birth. But the cause of my blindness happened to be genetics. The genes were recessive in my parents, even though both of them are sighted. They passed the genetics that caused mine and my brother's blindness down to us. And it was a 50% chance likely that we'd get it, because the fact that both our parents carried the genes that were necessary to cause it. So the condition that I have, it's a big, long name. Leber's congenital amaurosis. We call it Leber's for short. And what that does is it causes our rods and cones not to develop properly. Some people can actually have 20/70 vision and be able to drive even though they have to wear glasses to do so. Others, like me, have it severe enough to where we only have a small amount of usable vision to where we have to do things differently.
Can you tell by seeing between a black person and a white person during the day?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I can. If I'm looking at them properly, if the lighting is right, I can actually tell.
Can you tell?
Yes.
This is so cute, guys. Watch this. This is so cute.
For one, if I were to take your hand and put mine over top of it, I can actually see the difference in the shade of our hands.
Oh.
So that's where my color identification comes into play. Like I can always tell I can always tell more shades of color than the actual color. Like right now I know I'm wearing a white shirt and black pants, but the reason I know that is because I look at my clothing by feel instead of by sight. So I can always tell by the material of the shirt that I'm picking out, the material of the pants that I'm picking out when I'm putting on. You can always
tell the dark pants or light just
by touching the material.
Isn't by when you go to the mall to buy clothes, you also it's by feel, or does somebody have to tell you?
Usually, if I'm going shopping at the mall, then somebody's got to tell me what shade I'm looking at, like blue jean wise or pants wise or anything like that. Somebody usually has to tell me. But after I pick the clothes out that I want and everything and take them home, I organize them in a way to where I'm just like, okay, that goes with this, that goes here, that goes there.
Nice.
That way I can figure out, because you have to be that organized. If you want to look good and you want to make sure...
Okay, girl, okay. If you want to look good. See, I was expecting you to wear glasses, but she came out with blue eyes popping. Her hair done. She got it. She got it. No flirting, guys. No flirting. No flirting. It's not like she doesn't work in Grand Rapids, but no flirting, guys.
Oh my gosh.
What it's like having a blind brother?
To me it was normal. To me it was absolutely normal.
Who do you think is the colorblind?
What's that?
Who do you think is the colorblind?
Who do you think is the cooler out of the two of us?
Yeah, the colorblind person.
I don't know. I'm kind of leaving that one alone because right now, unfortunately, my brother and I are not speaking. In fact, it's kind of a major situation right now. He's not speaking to anybody in the family. No, it's fine. But, because of that, we're kind of separate right now. But we used to be super, super close. My brother and I were always super close because we would bond over music. We would bond over different books. We would, we would have all these just different fun games, conversations, everything. And we would always mess around in my parents' pool. We would always just have fun wrestling with each other, splashing each other, all that kind of stuff. But, everybody changes. Yeah. Everyone changes. They make decisions that cause them to change and not be who they were before. Because my brother, he used to be one of the funniest guys I knew. There was one day we were in high school, both of us. He was a sophomore. I was a junior. And I was walking right across the hall to get to my next class. And my teacher was standing outside the door. Well, my brother's coming from band. And out of 800 students, the two of us were like magnets. We would always run into each other.
You don't even know how, but somehow you find each other.
I know. So we ran into each other. My brother's still walking down the hallway, and I'm going, I just ran into my brother. That's hilarious. Like, I'm standing there going like, oh, God. Because this math teacher that I was going to, I knew he was going to have something smarmy to say because he was a bit of a smart aleck. So I'm walking to his room and I hear my brother call out and go, God, Sarah, watch where you're going. Open your eyes. And this teacher, he is laughing so hard. I don't know how he could still stay standing up, but he was cracking up. And he looks at me. He's got this big old grin on his face, and he's like, "How often does that happen? What is the odds? Like 1 in 800 chance odds that you would run into hair like that.
It's like you guys plan. It's like you gotta always walk in this part around this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's make it look like we didn't mean that.
Yeah, but no, I mean, because he used to be just hilarious, like sarcasm all the way with him, and now, you know, like I said, because there have been some changes that have happened, he is a very different person, and you know, I'm now the one that's actually starting to make the funnies. So I'm the one that's a little on the smarmy side because, you know, I finally started picking it up from some other people. A close friend of mine from church, oh my gosh, if you heard half of the things that he would say to me, I can guarantee you most people would be like, you know,
you should be banned.
Yeah, you should. Not even that. Not even that. They'd be looking at me like, how come you're not offended by what he just said to you? And I'm like, because for one, I know him well enough to where he's able to joke like that. And for two, because the fact that I know he's kidding. And for three, you can throw anything you want at me in the book and I'll probably just let it roll off of my back because of how used to it I am.
What has been the most it's more like not a compliment, but it's like an insult, but you're like, that's mine, like you owned it.
Oh, you're yeah. Like, oh god, I have several of those.
Okay. Whoa now, just one, pick one.
Pick one. Oh god,
you have too many.
Probably the one that really sticks with me the most.
You have the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen.
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You're bad.
No flirting, guys. No flirting.
Oh jeez, but probably the one that really sticks out to me the most is, even though I often correct people and let them know that this is called a cane, it's not a stick, it's not a walking stick, it's not anything like that, but because the fact that it rhymes, a close friend of mine came up with a nickname for me, the chick with the stick.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a very good-natured insult because, and I tell him, I'm like, if you use that in front of other people, I don't care because I still find it funny to this day.
Hey, chick with the stick, come here, look, let me talk to you. Actually, if nobody knows you're friends, you just call it that, and then you call each other that. That would be so funny.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, because the fact that these people know me well enough, they can get away with saying that. But if somebody were to go like, oh, hey, it's the person on the podcast who called herself the chick with the stick, I'd go like, excuse me, but who are you?
Who are you?
So I'm always, you know, even though I say it now and even though it's going to be publicized to whoever watches this, just know that when people use insults like that with me, it's got to be somebody who knows me really well.
You're getting hands.
Before...
She fights. Because she can see lights, can see if she's punching. She'll get you. She'll get you.
It's like the same friend says, when I lack in altitude, I have an attitude. Because I'm only 4'11", so
you'll get it back in attitude for sure. What do you think is the most interesting thing about being blind?
Probably the most interesting is daily interactions that I have with people. I always become really interested when I sit down and talk to somebody because I want to know what they're thinking when I'm sitting there actually doing my best to make eye contact.
Stop looking at me like that. Why are you looking at me? You can't even see me, but you look at me like... No, I'm just kidding.
But no, when I'm sitting down and actually trying to look at the person that I'm talking to and everything, it always interests me because it's so funny because there have been quite a few people who literally go like, I had no idea. And I'm like, well, it's because the fact that you never asked. You know, for starters, it's that. And for two, it's because the fact that I don't automatically come out and say, hey, I'm blind.
Yeah,
you know,
it's hard to tell with your eyes, honestly. Like some blind people that I've met before, you could tell with their eyes because they've, it's almost like they never fully developed.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
with you, like if I had met you and you were just talking to me, I'd be like, you have beautiful eyes. Why you look intensely. Like I think you can see me. Like I would need like you being blind would be the last thing I would think about.
Yeah.
Like if you look into the camera and just start speaking, which is on where that kind of like a little bit
right up there.
Actually, no, it's more on the Lord, not just the light. But if you had to look and just speak, I don't think anybody can tell you're blind.
Normally no, because the fact that a lot of people when a lot of blind people were born back in the early 90s, early 80s, 70s, stuff like that, a lot of them would be born with underdeveloped eyes. Many of them would be. So they have to wear these contact lenses in order to keep their eyes open just to even come close to being quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't like using that word is because normal is just a setting on the dryer.
It's a really,
no
it's
one's
a spectrum.
Normal.
Nobody's normal.
Yeah, no one's normal.
There's literally you're normal. I am literally, to most people, I am very abnormal. Like to most people, as you can see, I'm way too relaxed in life, way too goofy. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think for me personally, you've got to have a sense of humor. You've got to be able to laugh. You've got to be able to make jokes and, have a little bit of fun with people because, I mean, when I'm at work, I'm surrounded by smart Alex. Trust me.
Smart Alex.
Our manager, one afternoon, absolutely hilarious. I just finished up working on a patient, and I've got another patient coming in. And she said to me, when she walked through the door, she saw a hat and gloves sitting on the chair that most people use to put their clothes on and everything before they get on the table. Well, this patient said to me point blank, "There's a hat and gloves here. Do you know whose they are?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. But if you were to ask our manager, who I think just stepped out of his office for a minute, he might be able to tell you." So, somehow our manager, I don't know how he did this, but he ended up leaving his hat in the massage room. So I am in the kitchen washing my hands, getting ready to go, and he comes walking in and he goes, "I couldn't resist this, but have you seen a hat lying around anywhere?" And I just burst out laughing. I just about died. I finished washing my hands. I'm still laughing. I go walking up to the door, knock on the door. She goes, "Come in." I go walking in, and I'm still laughing. And she goes, "Okay, what's the joke?" So I explained it to her. I said, "Well, for starters, I'm blind, okay? I'm literally I'm being completely honest with you here. For starters, I am blind." And she goes, "Okay, so what happened?" And I said, "Well, when you mentioned the hat and gloves that you found, when you mentioned that to my manager, it was the manager's hat that you found that somehow ended up in here." And she goes, "Oh." And I said, "Yeah. And the manager is a smart aleck." So I told her what the manager said to me, and she burst out laughing just like I did. And she said, "You know what?
I just got it now. Have you seen my..."
Have you seen my hat laying around anywhere?
Freaking Alec. Freaking. Too smart. Smarty pants.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Biggest smart aleck in history. But anyway, so this person, what she said to me, and so many people have said this to me over the years, they're just like, "I'm so glad that you can laugh about some of the stupid things that people say about your blindness and everything." I'm like, hey, some of them might be stupid, but they're funny.
That is true. That is true. Stupid things are kind of funny. Like that person, "Oh, would you like sharing that interaction where you say you got really annoyed by that person who tried to help you? Also, can you tell us 3 things that will be no on how to help a blind person?"
Probably, well, the number one biggest no.
Pay attention, guys. Pay attention. It's just like me, especially if you're a fool like me. Pay attention. Don't do this. I did one mistake already today. I tried to hold their hand to help her. Okay. Sorry, but you go at it. Sorry, you go at it. I wasn't flirting. I promise you guys. I promise. I wasn't flirting. It was.
That's gonna be an inside joke. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be such an inside joke. Oh my goodness. Okay, so probably the number one biggest no-no: do not touch any belonging of a blind person, especially this. You don't touch it. You don't take it. You don't mess with it. I have had my cane almost stolen once. I have had people grab the tip of my cane in order to try to guide me. I've had people...
Can you explain that interaction, please?
Well, I was at Grand Rapids Community College, and I said, I just need verbal directions to get to this classroom. Well, the person that I spoke to, my cane tip was on the floor, just like this, and she bent down and she grabbed the very tip of it like this and was holding it probably 2 or 3 inches.
That's like somebody helping somebody blind person run a marathon.
Yeah. Well, you don't use your cane in the marathons. You just...
There goes my dumbass again. There goes...
Well, it's actual fact, because I've run track before, and you can't use your cane because the fact that there are other people there are other people on the track with you. They may be in front of you, they may be behind you, and everybody runs at a different pace. So how would that look? Someone just tripping and...
That's gonna be bad.
Exactly. You don't need any injuries because of that, but... This person had the very tip of my cane and was holding it probably about maybe 5 or 6 inches off the ground. And I was holding on to it, literally just going like, should I just do this and wrench it out of her hand and tell her to do it differently? So, but it's things like that people just do without even thinking, because I've even had them walking up to the right side of me. I'm holding my cane in my hand, getting ready to go. They'll grab a hold of my hand, cane and all. I'm like, no.
Something I would do.
I have to actually physically correct them and go, no, that's not the correct way to guide me. I'm sorry.
Smack him on the hand.
No, you don't do that.
You don't do that, guys.
No,
sorry.
Be gentle with them, because they don't, that's the thing. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know. And when they don't know, they're nervous. They don't know how to handle it. But like I said, again, once you get to know me over time and everything like that, and see how I manage myself and understand how I manage myself, they'll be like, oh, so all we have to do is this and this and this, just like that, said and done. So, but that's the first no-no. Probably the second no-no is, because I literally just named the biggest one, is don't move anything that belongs to a blind person. Leave it where it is. Don't touch anything that they may need in the near future. But probably the second biggest no-no is shouting. A lot of people think that when a blind person needs to be yelled at, and it's like, I'm sorry, but we're not deaf. We're blind. You don't need to yell in our faces. You don't need to come right up to us and lean in real close and go, hey, how's it going? You don't need to do that. Just politely, stand a couple feet away, shake hands, smile, say hi. And if you want to have a conversation, great. If you don't, that's fine.
Isn't it better even to be lower tone, since you guys have sensitive ears? Or not?
No. You can talk normally, and usually I understand what everybody's saying.
Yeah, my normally is loud, so maybe you thought I was yelling the whole time. But I wasn't yelling.
She is.
If you could have sight for 5 seconds, what scene would you like to see?
For 5 seconds? It's not so much a particular scene, but I would like to see what a person's face would look like.
Just any person?
Just any person. It doesn't matter who.
If you would choose one person, who would it be? It could be me, it's fine. It's not flirting, it's just choosing.
No, I would... The face that I'd like to see is my grandmother's face.
Oh, wow.
I want to see... I would give anything to see what she actually looked like. because so many people are just like, yeah, she's just a very beautiful person all the way around, and this and that and the other thing. And I'm like, well, I was able to see what was on the inside, but on the outside, I wasn't able to tell. So that's what I would like to see, is just her face.
Wow.
Just a simple image of her face.
If okay, while I work, since you're blind, have you ever touched somebody inappropriately by mistake?
No. Thank God, no.
Because that'd be fine. I'm sorry. How do you continue after that even?
Well, let me just say this. There are precautions against that happening, because you, when a person is usually getting a massage, they do take off the majority of their clothing, because the fact that the therapist always kind of tells them it's easier for me to do this when it's skin on skin, when it's, so, but there are precautions against that, because even though they are completely disrobed or almost so, we use sheets, simple bed sheets. And we have one on the table itself, and then we have another one that goes over top of the patient. So because of that sheet, and because I know exactly where it's at, because I draped the person with it, I know where my hands are and what I'm touching and what I'm working on. Now, there have been a couple of cases. One of them did happen in the workplace, but I kind of noticed that there was skin instead of white sheet where there shouldn't have been. And I told my patient, you've got to cover yourself, please. So I helped drape her, and I said, I know you may be wearing a brassiere right now, but even when you're wearing that, you've got to stay draped, please. It's not just for my protection, it's for your protection as well. So I take that very seriously, because ethics, that's a huge part of massage, because it's very intimate. You're very, very close to the other person a lot, sometimes only 3 or 4 inches away, depending on what you're doing. So because of the fact of that closeness, and because of what you're doing, it you have to pay attention to everything that you're doing. It doesn't matter where, what, or how you're doing it. You have to be attentive. Otherwise, anything can happen. Anything could.
That's true.
But that's why the massage therapist has to always be on point 100% of the time with every single person in there. So
that's fair.
So thank heavens for that. And because of the fact of being taught all of that, I make sure to keep that in mind with every single person I'm working on.
It's good to be conscious of your environment.
You have to be. You have to be. Especially with massage, you have to be, because
I'm booking myself. You're gonna have to massage me. I'm booking myself soon. See, the flirting gotta stop though. The flirting has to stop. You guys saw that she touched my shoulder. I'm just kidding. Do you think the blind gang, blind
people.
Gang.
That's another good one.
Okay, now, yay! I tried it, I got it right again.
So do I think the blind gang what?
So do you think, this was the same question, by the way. So do you think the blind gang have almost extra intuition? Does that make sense?
Extra
almost
intuition?
You can almost sense somebody, if somebody's got good intentions or bad intentions, or
you know what? Personally, I'm gonna, and this is coming from my own personal experiences.
And
yes,
that's the best truth.
Yes, from my own personal experiences, yes, I can always tell when people come walking up, whether they have good intentions or their intentions are how do I handle this? I'm feeling awkward right now. I can always kind of sense that with people. Because some people that have walked up to me, I can literally sense how uncomfortable they are when they have a question. And they always say to me, don't get awkward. And I look at them and I go, I'm not the one
You're
who's
the one.
awkward. You're the one who's awkward, and I can feel it from here. I mean, I can even tell when people are upset. I can tell when they're dealing with anxiety. I always kind of have that sixth sense to where it's just kind of like, okay, I think you need to back off here, or maybe this person needs this or that or the other thing. So yes.
Could you sense anything from me while we're talking?
Mostly I can sense right now that you're focused on what you're asking me, and at the same time you're having a good time.
Okay.
So that's kind of the feeling that I get from you right now, is that you're having fun.
I am having fun.
But at the same time you're asking some really good questions, and you're very curious. So I can tell all of that with you, is you're very curious, you're asking some great questions.
Thank you, I appreciate
But you're
that.
also having a good time
I
doing
am
this.
having a blast. I am having a blast. Alright. You are given the authority to give the blind gang a nickname. What would be the cool nickname for blind folks?
Cool nickname. Oh, geez. Well, when one that my family has actually come up with, and I've used it personally several times, is we all, when we walk together, some of us like to stay connected because, there are some who are what's called more mobile, which means that they kind of have a way of figuring out where they're going and everything like that. So when that happens, we all want to be connected. And so we call that the blind train. Because here we are walking with our canes, all of us hanging on to each other, and some of us practically running to keep up, while others are just like, okay, just drag me.
if the blind, okay, not the blind train, but if you can, we're going with the blind train. It's official now. The blind train is a new official nickname for blind people. If you ever see a group of blind people, you'll be like, yeah, there goes the blind train. train.
We need to get one of those wooden train whistles then, don't we?
Every time you walk, you just start whistling. No more sticks. Sticks are no longer, no sticks, canes. But she's the girl with the stick.
Shake with the stick.
Shake with the stick. You gotta rhyme with it. If you have to have a superpower, what would you be?
Phew. If I ever had a superpower,
shooting laser beam out of your eyes would be cool, but can't see. That's a bad villain. My name is Destroyer. I destroy everything in sight. No, I'm just kidding.
My superpower, I basically actually kind of call my blindness my superpower, and here's the reason I say that. I call it my superpower because I allow my blindness to teach others that you don't have to have sight to be able to get a job, to be able to live on your own, and to be able to take care of yourself on a daily basis. You don't have to have sight to do that. So my blindness, in a way, is my superpower because I allow it to show people, hey, just because I have this doesn't mean that I can't do anything. Can't is a word that should be completely taken out of the dictionary, especially if it's used in a negative connotation. Because when people say, well, I can't do this, I can't do that because of, and they always say because of, and most of them, especially because there are a lot of people that I know who have disabilities. It's not even just blindness here now.
Yeah.
There are so many disabled people out there that get coddled by their families.
Yeah.
And when that happens, they allow that disability to become a crutch, and they lean on that crutch and say, well, it's not possible for me because I have this, X, Y, Z. So you can either do one of two things. You can push forward and say, no, I'm not going to let my family coddle me. I want to do this. Or, no, I'm not going to let this happen or that happen or the other thing happen. You can always do that. You can push forward and say that. Or you can say, well, I'm not going to let my disability be my superpower. I'm going to let it be my crutch, and I'm going to let it control me. So you've got two ways of looking at it. Yeah. And for me, I look at it as, blindness is my superpower because I've not allowed it to control me, but I have allowed it to teach others that we can do just as much, even if we don't have something that so many people take for granted.
That is so true. I mean, like not even just being blind, like just like in life in general, a lot of people like can get disabled by their own thoughts. Like,
exactly.
Their mom told them like, oh well, your art sucked maybe in your 3rd grade, and all of a sudden you don't do art because like everybody almost created their own disability when it comes to making life decisions.
Right. It's because the fact that unfortunately when they hear another person's approval, they tend to believe what that person tells them. For me, I've learned, even though I've wished I'd learned it a lot sooner than what I did, I learned how to sometimes take that with a grain of salt. Because people are going to say things. People are going to say things whether you want them to or not. They're going to say stuff. They're going to say things that you know are not true. Oh, well, that song didn't fit you. Well, this didn't work out properly. Well, you could have done this. People are going to say things. And it's up to you to decide how you take what that person says.
Yep. You heard it here first. That's the advice right there.
You can either take it and say, well, they're right, so I'm not going to do it again. Or you can take what they said and go like, you know what? I'm going to show them. I'm going to teach them that it is possible. So that's how you look at it. Because the Bible verse that I take from this is Mark chapter 10, verse 27. With man, some things are possible. With God, all things are possible. And another Bible verse, I cannot remember the book, chapter, or verse right now, but it's also close to my heart. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
13 or something.
I think you're right. I think it's Philippians 13. I think you're right.
Or something along those lines.
I think so. But that verse always sticks very close to my heart because no matter what people say, no matter what negativity comes out of somebody's mouth, it's like, no, I have the strength to overcome that. I have the strength to push that away because it's Christ who gives that strength to me in order to do that.
Now, can I ask you a random question? Do you think that strength comes from Christ? It was already built in you?
It comes from both. It comes from both because you pray to Christ, you pray to God to give you the strength that you need to continue going forward, no matter how challenging things are. But even though you pray to him and you ask him to give you the strength that you need, you can also, because the fact that people have free will as well. So you can also learn how to have a strong will in order to help yourself move forward also. So it comes from both because, for me, I had to have a strong will to get through a lot of things that I went through.
I bet.
And even though there were times where I didn't count on God to get me through, I somehow managed to do it anyway. But when I counted on God, somehow the weight that I was carrying, the weight that I was mentally and emotionally and spiritually holding on to, somehow it became easier. And do you want to know how that was? It's because I finally said, God, I need your help to get through this. Help me. Be with me. Carry this. Please, I can't do it alone. So even though there are days where you may feel alone, lean on God and he'll get you there. It may not be in the way that you want, but it's going to be the way that he wants.
Within the church experience, were you ever given false hope at any point?
Yeah.
And how was that experience like?
Rough.
Is there something you want to share now?
Well, I was always given false hope that, how do I want to put this? Because I can't say the name of the church. I don't wish to say the name of the church.
There's no need to say the name of the church or anybody's name.
But I always had, when I first became part of the Eastern Orthodox Church, I got my start in a church in Albion, and everybody was kind to me and everything else. Well, I carried the hope that I would experience that same kindness to a church that's here in Grand Rapids. And unfortunately, that hope was very much dashed probably about 2 or 3 years into my time there, because there would be times where I'd ask a priest to help me, ask our priest there to help me find a way home, or to assist, or to have somebody be able to drive me home. And it comes right back around to feeling welcomed. That's the thing. So I would be asking him, can you just please help me find a way home, because Go Bus isn't coming until this time. I don't want to stay late. I'm really sorry, but it's the only time that they had. And no matter how much I tried explaining it to him, he's like, well, no, it's your responsibility.
Oh, wow.
So in the end, I did manage to find other ways to get home, but it was all me who had to ask the parishioners to do so. Which I don't mind doing, because that's something I'm willing to do, but at times it puts me out of my comfort zone, because the worst thing you can hear is no, and then you go and you talk to someone else. You go and you talk to someone else, because sometimes that's going to happen to where somebody just can't take me. But most people were just like, well, no, you live too far out of the way. We can't drive you. We can't do this. We can't. It was always, we can't. So that was when that false hope kind of was dashed. And it was even more dashed when we ended up getting a different priest to serve at our church. And this priest, I was talking with him, and I said, is it possible for you to help me find somebody to get home? My ride is not coming until this time. I'm going to be here way later than everybody else, and I don't wish to do that. His response was, well, we can order an Uber or a Lyft to take you home, and we can pay for it. Well, that's not what I want. I want to get to know my church family. I want to get to know the people that I'm around every week. That's what I want. And so I came back to him and I said, there was a sermon that you preached a few weeks ago talking about almsgiving. And if you can stand up on the Salea, if you can stand up on the pulpit, for lack of better terms, Salea, pulpit, however you want to put it. But if you can stand there and face your congregation and talk about almsgiving, and discuss almsgiving and the importance behind it. If you can sit there and talk about that, but turn around and tell one of your parishioners you can't help them, what does that say about you? So, for me, that's when I realized that I was never going to be welcomed at this church. It just wasn't going to happen, because there were very few people who accepted me for who I was. Yeah, they would. And this is a huge thing. It's called inclusion. Inclusion has become a very big word this day and age. Well, we need to include people. We need to give them chances. We need to make them a part of us. But, inclusion, it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. But what happens after that? Okay, you've included this person. You've done right for this person. But what happens after that? Do you just keep including them in things and allowing them to help, and allowing them to do small tasks here or there? Or do you integrate them and say, hey, we see that you're a part of us. We want you to be more of a part of us. And we want you to succeed with us. We want you to be a part of us. We want you to be one of us.
Grow with us.
Yeah, we want you to grow with us. Exactly. So what happens? Because 90% of the time, inclusion's as far as it goes. It's very rarely that a person gets, all of a sudden, people realize that, hey, that person really wants to be a part of us. And, what happens is we want to be taken seriously. That's what people with disabilities want, is we want to be taken seriously.
I'll take you serious.
Jeez. But the reason behind that is because the fact that everybody, it doesn't matter whether it's a person with a disability or not. Everyone has a story.
Even a kid wants to be taken serious.
Yeah, everybody wants to be taken serious. Everybody wants to be heard. Everyone has a story. Whether you're 6 years old, 16 years old, 50 years old, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Every person of every demographic, disability, whatever have you, everybody has a story.
Were you ever given the hope that God was going to take your blindness away?
There are a lot of people around me who wish that God would perform a miracle and take my blindness away. In fact, people at the church that I was just talking about, someone walked up to me and said, well, we found because we have what are called icons. And if you were to look up any Eastern Orthodox church, you would see images of Jesus, you would see images of the Virgin Mary, you would see images of saints and angels all over the church. So one person walked up to me and quite literally, blatantly said, we found a perfect icon for you, didn't we? And I'm like, well, if you're thinking in the way of God healing me, no. But if you're thinking of someone to pray to, then yes. Because some patron saints in the church are actually blind. You have Saint Matrona the Blind of Moscow, and you have another saint by the name of Paraskevi, who also was blind. So there are saints within our church who were blind. And people just go like, well, you should have those saints on your altar because the fact that, who knows, one of these days, if you pray right, they might heal you. And I'm like,
what?
Oh yeah, that's the way some people act about this.
But that's better than, good thing you're never in a Pentecostal church.
Oh God, I went to a Pentecostal church. I will never go back to one. Nobody
What happened?
Oh gosh, I went to a Pentecostal church once, and they were doing the whole speaking in tongues, and the priest was literally, or the pastor was literally shouting at the top of his lungs because I asked if he could pray for my grandmother, and it was all about heal her, heal her, heal her. And I was just like, that's not what I was asking.
Just pray for a peace. That's all.
Yeah, that's all I wanted was just.
But again, I think people who belong to those churches, they do still believe in the fantasies of like fancy miracles.
Yeah, they do, because they take the Bible too literally. That's their problem. They take it way too literally. They don't take it in the way that it's supposed to be taken, where Jesus uses the healing. I mean, John chapter 9 is a huge, so important to me, not even funny. Because it's all about, it's not just healing physical blindness, it's about spiritual blindness. And I get so upset when a priest or a pastor, it doesn't matter who, when somebody preaches on this chapter, they miss that completely. And I will sit there and I listen to them and I'm like, okay.
Being blind, give God's glory.
Well, it's not so much like that. Yeah. It's more the fact of, okay, they preached on a lot of good points. They preached on this. They preached on this. Okay, I've heard this before. But the one thing that I don't hear is them speaking about spiritual blindness, because that's what John 9 is all about. It's all about healing spiritual blindness. Because, I mean, what did Jesus say? I am healing this man so that way he can bring, or so that way I can show people that light can still be brought to this world. That's basically what he was saying in a nutshell. So that people can spiritually see the glory of God. That's what he was talking about. So even though he physically healed someone,
it was more of a spiritual.
It was more of the spiritual concept behind it that he wanted to show everyone. But how did people take it? They took it literally. And that's where I look at it and I'm like, you guys are missing a huge point.
You want to hear a sad part? I'm like, I'm not a believer anymore. But that's how I feel like, when people say Jesus is God, I feel like they took it literal and not like in the sense that you meant it.
Oh, we call it God in 3 in 1.
Yeah. No, I know. I understand. I used to be a Christian actually, but I walked away from the faith. I'm in college. Yeah, so it was an interesting journey. But yeah, it has been very interesting because again I grew up with a lot of church people.
Yeah.
I had a lot of church roles to play, and so but then I felt like I wasn't gonna fake what I believed, so I just say I just better stay back. Yeah, that was my experience.
But sometimes unfortunately there are churches out there that cause people to walk away from the faith for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, mine was in church actually. I had an amazing experience with my church. Yeah, it was more of a, how can I put it? It's more of an understanding. So for example, let's say God, for example, the concept of God. Every time I hear people describe God, would be somebody describing darkness. Let me just use an example. This is an example. But for me, God would be when a blind person somebody who's blind, they're fully blind, tell you what they see. That's how I feel about God. I don't feel like God is the definition that we have given him. Does that make sense? Like in the East, they think of the Spirit of God this way. In the West, they think of God this way. In Judaism, they think of God this way. In Islam, they think of... So that's, for me, it's like that's a way people trying to describe darkness. And then the God for me would be like almost like, describe what you see when you close your eyes.
Oh, wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
The difference between darkness and not seeing nothing.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying completely because unfortunately a lot of people have very negative connotations of God. And that's what I was trying to say is there are churches out there, there are people out there who describe him in such a negative way that it turns people off. It really turns people off from the faith. I mean, because I had a friend once who quite literally said, well, if God is so powerful in this and that and the other thing, why is there still sickness in the world? Why is there still cancer? Why is there still blindness? Why, why this, why that? And I'm like, okay, those are all really good questions. I don't have the answer to those questions. I don't. But, after a while I thought about it and I'm like, well, we still have those things because the fact that there are plenty of people who are not ready to see God's glory. That's why. Or
it could just also be, it's simply because it's part of the human experience.
It's
that it's nothing to do with God, nothing to do with the devil. It's just that part of being human is that you have to go through this. It's like chickens get sick. Does that have to do with anything with God or anything? No, sickness just exists in this life, whatever we call life. And we just have to experience it just like we experience the wind. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So
just like we experience the wind, like we experience rain, snow.
It's the same way we experience some of these life situations.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with God. That's why I have no view of God. If that makes sense. So I can't tell you God is good or God is bad. God is evil or God is this. I just have no view. That's all I.
Well, and you know what? If that's the way you wish to be, then that's the way you wish to be. Because here's the problem: so many people judge others by their beliefs, by so many things. But I'm not willing to do that because people have their beliefs. They're going to stick to those beliefs, whether and there's nothing I can say because I look at it like, well, if that's your take on it, if that's your view on it, then I'm going to expect it and leave it alone.
That is true.
But I know people out there who don't respect that at all, and they wish to argue every point with you. And I'm like, you can't always do that because you can't win every battle, no matter how much you want to.
I have fun with people when people try to argue. It's because I'm trying to get better at podcasting. And so when people try to engage with me, like debating or something like that, or I just go along, even if I don't know the information, I just play along. I really do. If there was a question that you would have loved if you were the interviewer. Let's say if you were me, and you had to ask yourself a question. What would that question be, and what would the answer be? The answer to that
wow.
question.
Ooh, that's a good one. The question that I would appreciate somebody asking me at some point or another is, God, that's a hard one, because there are so many questions that I'd love for people to ask, and some do, some don't. It just depends. Oh gosh, man, you really stumped me on this one, because that's a really good question.
And that would be our ending one too.
Yeah, and the really good ones, they're always the most difficult to think of. But what I would love for someone to ask me if they ever got the opportunity is how, not so much how, but what it's like to gosh, it's hard for me to put the words together.
You want me to gamble with some questions and then you can think about that one?
No. No.
Okay, it's coming.
Just give me a second. It's woosa.
Relax.
But it's more what it's like, because I never really get people asking me this question, but what is it like to be me on a daily basis? I never really get people to ask me that question, because the simple answer, because there are two answers that I have to this question. The simple answer, even though it's a big word, is adaptation. That's the simple answer. The involved answer is, well, things change on a daily basis. So again, it comes straight back to adaptation, but there's more. Because I get up, I shower, I dress, but I have to think about every step that I take and decide what I'm going to do and how I'm going to execute it.
Oh, wow.
So, I sometimes have to think about that. Okay, so I just finished up with my hair. I finished doing what I wanted to do with it. Now what's next? Oh, I've got to do this. Oh, I've got to do this. So it's always making a routine out of your day-to-day life. And for me, having a routine is key. But even that routine changes on a daily basis, because sometimes I will have somebody call and say, I'd like to come and see you. I'd like to come and get a massage from you, or whatever it is. And I say, okay, what time? Because I have work. My bus leaves at this time. Well, can I come at 10 o'clock in the morning? Okay, 10 o'clock is fine. So instead of getting up at about 8:30, 9 o'clock like I normally do, I make sure to wake up between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, so that way I have time to get ready for that person. So it's all about adaptation, and it's all about making sure that my routine stays the same in the morning, even though I have to change a few things up to make sure that I have time for a patient to come in and get what they need done. So it's an involved answer, but at the same time, it all comes down to that simple word, adaptation. Adapt to everything. That's what we have to do in my world. In my world, I have to adapt. I mean, I even have to adapt when I'm in the workplace. It's the same thing, because I have people coming in with different body types, different conditions, different difficulties, all this type of stuff. I've had people come in with autoimmune diseases, and they say to me, well, I'm really hypersensitive, so can you do this? Or I'm sensitive to this, so can you do it this way? Or go ahead and go as deep as you want. When it comes to deep tissue massage, go ahead and do as much as you can, but I will tell you when I start to hurt. So it's things like that where I have to adapt to every single situation. Everything.
If you could trade any limb for sight, could you do it?
No.
No?
No. A lot of people say, I'd give my right hand to get my sight back, or I'd give my left foot to get my sight back. I
was going to ask you, I was going to start like, would you give left leg? If you said yes, I was going to be like, what about both? If you said yes, I was like, what about your arms? I just want to see how important.
No, because for me, my faculties are extremely important because I need them. Because say if I all of a sudden had to lose a hand all because of something that happened, either because I cut it and it got a really bad infection, or I'm a diabetic, and diabetics often, if they're not taking care of themselves, if they're not doing this or that or the other thing, they will lose a limb, or in some cases they will lose, guess what? Their sight. I've met diabetics who have gone blind, and even though they still manage to take care of themselves, some are very angry about it. Some get angry when they have to deal with an amputation. Some get angry when, and it's just like, well, unfortunately, you didn't take care of yourself, so you're the cause of it. So for me personally, because of how much it means, I mean, if I were to lose a hand, I wouldn't really be able to do massages all that great, would I? No. I mean,
even standing up with one leg, you'd be like, you'd be swinging.
Well, unless I were to get because what I would do is I would try to get a prosthetic. That's exactly what I'd do. Is I'd try.
What
to
do you think is the coolest disability?
Oh wow. I think all disabilities.
Okay.
I think
parents and my favorite child, they gotta be one disability you think is like, I think that's cool. I think it's cool rolling around on a wheelchair. I think there's gotta be something you find cool.
I used to think the coolest one was riding around in the wheelchair. That's what
I was right. She's just like any of us guys. She wanna ride around that wheelchair.
I mean, that's what I used to think when I was younger, but now, I look at it and I'm like, all disabilities have their interesting qualities about them. All of them are interesting to learn about, are interesting to talk about. All of them have that one thing that you can sit down and say, oh, I can kind of empathize with that a little better. I think I understand where you're coming from. Because it's like I said, people who have autoimmune deficiencies, for example, that's a disability in its own right. Hashimoto's, that's an autoimmune immune deficiency that also can be classified, to me anyway, as a disability. And the reason I say that is because even though the person is able to do everything on a daily basis and is able to take care of themselves, they may have some difficulties with things like certain muscle tension, or they're hypersensitive. Well, for me personally, I can understand hypersensitivity because I have that. I deal with being hypersensitive to different things on a daily basis, all because the fact that what's my main way of handling things is with touch. That is my main way of doing things, is my hands. It's like I said earlier, these are my eyes. And because of the fact that I've also become sensitive to touch with the rest of my body, it's one of those things where if someone were to do something, I would probably react a little physically. I wouldn't hurt them or anything, but I would either kind of step back or go like, oh, what are you doing?
Talking about touch, if you had to touch the fingerprints of somebody a couple of times, would you be able to tell it?
No.
Okay.
No, because fingerprints are so small.
I know I'm so dumb, but I can ask.
No. It's not. That was not a dumb question at all. That was actually a really good question because I was able. We did study fingerprints when I was in third grade, and there are three types. They have the whorl, the loop, and the arch. Those are the three most common fingerprints. And probably the most common one out of those three is the loop. But the only way you can even see that is if it's under a magnifying glass or a microscope. That's the only way you'd be able to tell what shape someone's fingerprint was. So what they did for me to understand the shape of the fingerprints was they did a 2-dimensional picture of it and had to make it huge. Like they had to blow it up to an 11 by 11 sheet of paper. in order for me to actually feel what it felt like.
Oh, wow.
Because, people, my sighted peers were using drawings on the board. I had to use these giant, blown-up, two-dimensional photos of fingerprints just to actually feel what they felt like. But I would not be able to feel someone's fingerprint just by studying their finger alone. Okay. I wouldn't be able to do that. Okay. Because they're too small, they're too involved, too much detail there.
How sensitive are your fingers, though? In terms of what can you tell that other people cannot tell, that you think?
Well,
most people, obviously people like me, not like blind people.
Yeah. For example, I'm sensitive enough to actually feel a very minor temperature change in water. Oh. Like I can always tell if water is colder than lukewarm or exactly at room temperature, just a little bit hotter than room temperature.
Oh, wow.
I can always feel, like, for example, if I were to feel different kinds of wood, I might be able to tell the differences in the kind of wood that I'm touching. But that would take a little bit longer because I'm not a woodworker. I'm not a furniture, you know.
Yeah, I know that.
But you know, people did kind of explain, because I did take a shop class. I actually, the jewelry box that I have at home was crafted by yours truly.
Okay. She's flexing, guys.
Because I had to learn how to plane the wood. I had to sand it. I had to stain it. The whole 9 yards. I did everything. Except for the metal work on the jewelry box itself, because there are metal hinges that hold the doors together and everything. There are metal hooks to hang the jewelry on and everything else. But other than that, I crafted the frame of it. I crafted the doors. I crafted the drawers on the bottom. I did all of that.
We have 3 minutes before we are done.
Okay.
Based on the timer.
That's okay.
Now I have 2 quick questions. Like,
sure.
It's gotta be with quick answers. So the first question is, what is the bravest thing you have done as a blindie?
The bravest thing. Blindie.
She got it! Is that good or bad?
I don't mind.
Guys, I told you I was getting better at this. Oh, you see, I threw it there. I was like, oh, she heard it. Did she hear it? Okay, sorry.
Probably the scariest thing I've ever done as a blind person is go on a zip line. Oh. I don't like zip lines. I do not like dangling in midair, wondering if the rope is all of a sudden going to snap and then just go. No. So zip lines scare me.
Have you been on a roller coaster?
What's that?
Have you been on a roller coaster?
Roller coasters, I don't mind.
Okay.
Roller coasters, I don't.
Secured, huh?
Yeah.
And people around you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When there's no one around me and I'm hanging in midair and I'm going across like that, just no. Because I've done it twice. I screamed as though I was getting killed.
Oh my.
Yeah, that was how high pitched my scream was. It was very, very loud, very ear splitting. So no, thank you. Zip lines out of the question.
Now when it comes to dating, there's 5 guys talking, just chilling. How can you decide which one you're attracted to?
Oh man.
Now people gotta know.
Kind of by the sound of their voice a little bit. Like I always go by voice.
How you doing?
I always kind of go by voice patterns, by speech patterns a little bit, because I can always. Gosh,
she sounds like a teddy bear.
Yeah, or he sounds kind of cute, or sounds like I don't know.
Sounds like a douche. Sounds aggressive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a macho man. I want him.
Exactly. So I always kind of go by voice inflections, because there was one time I was out with a friend of mine, and our waiter kind of had a tone of voice that I just really liked. I was really attracted to it. And so I leaned close to my friend April and I said, "Between you and me, tell me what he looks like." And I said it that quietly because the fact that I didn't need anybody overhearing me. And when she described him, I was like, I don't know if that's
that.
exactly.
That's not the voice or the voice gave me. Let me get my voice echoes. Let me see how big his nose is.
My God.
Alright, we'll close it down. Thank you again for listening. I thought we were going to be an hour, but it's been 2 hours. So either way, thank you guys for keeping us with us. It was fun. I had an amazing time. Thank you, Sarah, for blessing us with your time.
Oh, you're so welcome.
She's a massage therapist. So, hey, I can't give you the address right now, but if you want details, I'll connect you. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I hope you had fun too.
I did. Oh, I had a great time. I had a great time.
Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty. Woo! Wow, that's took 2 hours.